All right, let's take the story. So tons of dried coconut shells go waste every day, but one entrepreneur is finding use for them. Today, we bring back the story of Akoshi, a startup company started by entrepreneur Joshua Tete, which made the nomination for the Best Business Story at the 2018 West African Media Excellence Awards.
Joshua Tete walks me to his backyard.
So this is your backyard?
Yes.
Where all the production takes place?
Yes, please.
Joshua was introduced to the idea of recycling dry coconuts by his brother. He was already into carpentry, managing his father's sawmill. Fascinated by the idea, Joshua decided to give it a try, and that's how Akoshi started.
This is what gets transformed into that.
Yes.
How is it done?
Okay, so after we get the coconuts from market, we bring it here and we cut it. After the cutting, we scoop the meat out. And then
With this, I suppose.
Yes. It's fast.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And then after cutting, we bring it to the shop for sanding, and it gets transformed into the various products you see here.
Joshua takes delivery of the raw materials from Bojos in the central region, about 1,000 dry coconuts a week. That's how huge the market is. Money savers, deco pieces, jewelry boxes, gift packages are just about a few of the stuff the coconuts are recycled into. After the coconuts are carved and sanding is done, the items are taken to a shop.
What's up?
How are you?
I'm good.
How's everything going at the workshop?
Everything is good. Everything is good.
Some stuff?
Yeah, I brought some money savers and, as usual, containers and some vases for you to do your magic on it for me.
Nice. Charlie, the thing we want to.
Yeah.
So how are we doing these ones?
You know,
Should I do them like the animals?
yeah, animals and then a bit of the.
Do some owls?
Yeah, not bad.
Different kind of.
Yeah.
Joshua didn't want to leave his products at just that, so about a year ago he partnered with creative entrepreneur Sena Ahaji to do some artwork on the carved items. At first, Joshua admits it was difficult to convince people to patronize his products, but that has changed a great deal along the way, and now they struggle to meet demand.
The orders, it goes quickly. So there's the only two workers.
Very huge.
It's very huge. Yeah. Togo, Germany. There's a restaurant in Germany that's ordered from us, and there's the client here in Ghana. He takes it to Germany every time.
The pride for Akoshi is being able to promote an eco-friendly lifestyle and adding value to millions of dry coconuts, as Sena explains.
Product development is very important to us, and we are constantly also discussing our work with other artists who also very kindly, generously give us, constructive criticism, I would say, or some tips on how to, construct this better, or color schemes or concepts, so we can also be more innovative and playful. Because this is just the beginning. This is not like our final, so it's a journey.
It's been a long 3-year journey, but Joshua believes we can do a lot more with the dry coconuts.
What happens is that when we cut the coconuts, the food is actually sold to caterers, because we don't have a production plant to turn to oil, to biscuits and stuff. So we are researching. So we are researching. We're researching. We praying that in future we can get a big land in Takoradi where we can get the products and then also do all these things. Then use the food for the meat for the oil and other things, and then the shell for craft.
While Joshua hopes to expand his market to other countries, he also desires to teach this craft in schools.
All right, so now you know why I am so excited.
Okay, so
Great
this was
story, great
featured
story.
on the Joy Business Van segment,
Sure.
and well, like you said, was a great piece. Just
Proud of
more
you,
light.
right?
Sandy, can you stop for that?
And the spirit of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, throw more light on what we can do with waste and coconut shells. We take coconuts every day. We don't know where the shells go to, but one entrepreneur is finding use for it, and thank God that it made the mark somewhere. So,
Right.
like I was saying, this was featured as one of the companies on our startup program, the Joy Business Fund. But how far have we come in promoting young entrepreneurs like Joshua Tete, the guy you saw there in the clip? Joining me via Skype is CEO of the African Network of Entrepreneurs, Eko Mensah, with some perspective. Eko, thanks for your time tonight. Now, in the last few years, our country has been hit by an entrepreneurial wave. Do you think that we have been able to maximize the potential of young entrepreneurs as a country to our benefit?
Okay, hello JoyNews. How are you guys doing? I think that this current government is doing an amazing work with unearthing talent and then ensuring that young people with dreams, especially those that want to go into businesses, have a certain hope, you know, and that is what we are all asking for, that the government provides a certain hope. Because as a government, really, they cannot give us all that we need, but then if we have some sort of an enabling environment that would help us unearth the various talents, ideas, and businesses that young people have, then it's going to enable the entrepreneurial system and the ecosystem to thrive. And that's what the government is doing, especially with the NEP program. And as you may know, recently the government gave over 1,000 young businesses some amounts of money ranging from 10,000 to 100,000. Even though this came as a loan, I think that it is something that is unprecedented, something that no government has actually been successful at doing to unearth and enable young businesses to grow. So, and also with the NEP program that is going into its second phase in December, this is like a sustainability that makes all of us very excited as well. Okay. And the good thing is that the government is working with the current hubs, and the hubs are entrepreneurial organizations that that were providing some support for entrepreneurs even before government stepped in. And we are happy that it is not working without us. It is working with us, you know. Right. So we have various hubs in the various countries, in the various regions that the government is currently working with. And this helps us in our work as well.
Sure. And just briefly, in a minute, may you talk about access to finance, because that has been a major challenge. Government is trying to bridge that gap. But what are the other bottlenecks that need fixing right now in supporting our promising entrepreneurs?
Well, the bottlenecks are access to markets. You know, our markets is pretty small, and then especially when you want to do businesses that employ a lot of people, you will need to have access to market beyond the country. So we are hoping that the government will help us open up more markets and then help us as young entrepreneurs to meet the requirements of these international businesses, international markets. And that's why I was excited when I heard that the government is going into some sort of a partnership with Alibaba, you know, to open up global markets to young businesses. So that's one of the things that the government is working on, that we believe that if it's successful, will help us open markets so that we can do more export than, you know, import.
Thanks very much for your time tonight. Eko Mensah is Chief Executive of the African Network for Entrepreneurs, Tano. There, you're still watching Business Live. You're taking a short break. When we come back, Sandy has a great discussion for you around banks that are failing and the consolidation that has gone on over the last few months.
Welcome back, and you're still watching Business Live. So over the past 12 months, 7 banks have failed. Then we saw the consolidation of 5 of them, now known as the Consolidated Bank Ghana. The story didn't end there. A move described by the central bank as reforms in the financial sector has actually degenerated into something really different, panic withdrawals, with many describing the situation as crisis. But Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison, says we are not in crisis. In fact, he actually says 7 failed banks held only 10% of the banking industry's assets, and that their collapse does not mean there's crisis. But what does a crisis in the banking sector means, and what will agree with the governor's accession? Philip Nafri of Joy Business is here for more on this very topic. Thanks so much for joining me.
Sandra.
First of all, are we in crisis or we are not?
Well, that's very hard to define. If you're following the governor's arguments, from a technical point of view, he's looking at the numbers and he's saying that these 7 banks that have gone down held only 10% of the assets. It will surprise you to know that in 1980, in Ghana's very banking sector, 4 banks held 70% of the banking sector assets. So imagine those 4 banks where
10%
went down. That was 70% in the 80s.
Okay.
Now just 7 of them hold 10% of the assets. So if you look at it from the governor's arguments, yes, you might say that we are not in crisis, but you have to examine other parts of it. So I'm here to present crisis versus...
Yes, I want to know the indicators that will actually tell you whether we are in crisis or we are not.
Okay.
So we put a beautiful graphics together to show that, right?
Yes, we did.
All right.
And just to go over that quickly, if you look at something called the financial soundness indicators, okay, so this are the arguments of the governor, and he's saying that because 7 banks held only 10% of the assets, we're not in a crisis. And we know that last year we had the UT Bank Capital Bank through the purchase and assumption agreement. GCB Bank took over their assets and liabilities. So that was 2 banks. Then this year we had the 5 banks, Beige Bank, Royal Bank, Sovereign Bank, Construction Bank, and the Royal Bank. But it will interest you to know that in the governor's submissions, as captured by the BNFT, he says Sovereign Bank and Construction Bank, their level of financial intermediation was not very high.
What does that mean?
They hadn't been in existence for long.
Okay.
So how they were playing in the banking industry was not as high as the other banks which have been there for years, where savings and loans and, had moved into other areas of the financial scope. So if you look at it on the surface, yes. Then there was also the Bank of Ghana's continuous reassuring, if I can put it that
public,
way. Yes, that our deposits are safe and there's something for us to see, promoting a safe banking system in Ghana. Then they described a plethora of actions they had taken to keep the banking sector in check. That was somewhere in April to May of this year. Then they came out with a raft of directives, corporate governance directive, fit and proper directives, and a whole range of things. So yes, 1 year down the line, you can say that we've had challenges. The regulator has assured us that no, this is not a crisis. If you even read stuff from the World Bank, they describe it as they describe what they call systemic banking crisis, where all banks are insolvent and illiquid.
But there's still crisis attached to it, whether it's systemic or not.
There's still crisis attached to it.
Yes.
Okay. So if we can move to the other slide that discusses crisis versus not crisis, we can get some more light from there.
So what actually are the indicators that you see that okay, this is crisis, this is not crisis? You spoke about.
If I look at the banking sector report, they have what you call financial soundness indicators. So you look at liquidity ratios, you look at solvency ratios, and you look at profitability, your net income. And the last or most recent banking sector report put everything at generally good. So from the surface of it, there's no crisis if you follow the numbers. But
Philip, you agree with me that people are panicking. They are going to the banks, they are taking their monies, and there's this assurance, but banks are any spread to even the microfinance sector. So can we still say that we don't have crisis?
And that's the other part of the conversation we need to explore. In books, financial literature, technical literature, if you look at it on the surface, if only 7 banks hold 10%, that's not a problem. But people are concerned about how it will spread to other areas. How now businesses are pulling back. Even some say sponsors are pulling back from events. People are doing this just because you might not know what's going to happen to your bank tomorrow morning. And it's going to spread some amount of fear and panic. All right, Philip,
finally, let's talk about the road to recovery. How do we recover from this?
Okay, well, it's going to take a multi-dimensional approach. We have the regulator on one side, we have the banks themselves, the financial institutions, we have the customers, you and I, and everything. So we all have to come together, and everybody must be on the same page in the same book, in the same library, on the same shelf, as to
right.
exactly how the sector is going to move forward.
All right, thank you so much. Still a debate as to whether we are actually experiencing some form of crisis in the banking sector or not. But let's move on to other stories. And the Ministry of Energy and Finance will soon present a bill to Parliament to regulate how the country's oil revenue is distributed. The bill, when passed, will ensure that oil and gas exploration communities benefit fully from their natural resources. President Akufo-Addo made this known at the official launch of the first oil and gas licensing round in Accra.
Over the years, there have been concerns over the adverse effects of oil and gas exploration activities on local communities, especially in Nigeria. Despite the visibly degraded environments as a result of exploration activities, these communities along the coast and inland areas have been left little or no developments at all. The development has generated a lot of debate from a section of the public and civil society groups about the need to have a clear-cut law on prioritizing the well-being of these communities. According to President Akufo-Addo, Ghana has received petitions to this effect and has directed the Ministries of Energy and Finance to draft a bill to be passed into law. He made the revelation in an address to officially launch the first oil and gas licensing roundtable in Accra.
This will not only have a positive impact on our oil production profile and on revenues to the state, but will also provide an opportunity to develop a new economic growth pole in northern Ghana when production of oil commences. I've also been informed of the adverse effects that onshore development could pose to the welfare of our communities. I've directed the Ministries of Energy, Finance, and Environment, Science and Technology, and Innovation to draft and present to Parliament regulations on dealing with these adverse effects, and also on onshore oil and gas development and revenue distribution, respectively, to address proactively any potential contestations that may arise in these communities in the course of time.
Known as the Oil Revenue Distribution Bill, when implemented, will regulate the distribution of the resource. Minister of Energy Peter Amau warned potential companies against the presentation of fake and misleading documents during the bidding process.
I would like to take this opportunity to assure participants in the licensing round and all the other subsequent ones that the process will be fair to all. The biddable factors which are intended to achieve the objectives of attracting competent companies include technical competence, technology transfer, revenue maximizations, environmental sustainability, and higher Ghanaian content will be evaluated on carefully designed merit points.
And we've got to go tonight. We'll bring you the story of Tema Port being the only point of entry for authorized textiles later at 7 on JoyNews Prime. My name is Daryl Kwao.
And my name is Sandra Esinamapene. For more news, do log on to myjoyland.com/business. And congratulations once again.
Thank you. Thanks for watching.